The Blue Heart Podcast Network is proud to present Captain Donna Roman Hernandez and her program, Police Speak. Donna served for 30 years in law enforcement in New Jersey and retired at the rank of captain. She has a world of experience to share with you, women of law enforcement.
Welcome to my podcast, Police Speak, your destination for all things law enforcement. I am Donna Roman Hernandez, a retired police captain from New Jersey. I served 30 years in law enforcement with 2 police departments, all my police service in the patrol division. My guest is Dr. Debbie Rosen, who has been a colleague and a friend of mine for many years. Dr. Debbie, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Donna.
Tell our listening audience a little bit about your background.
Sure. So I have a doctorate in performance psychology that used to be called sports psychology, but they've expanded it. So it's really about goal achievement and around the psychology of achieving goals and breaking down barriers. I'm also a certified nutritionist, certified personal trainer. I'm a health and wellness coach, and I'm also a published author on obesity, health, wellness, and dietary behaviors.
Well, I know that you are an expert in many areas of wellness, and we have a high demand from our listening audience for wellness and resiliency topics. And I thought that you were the best to bring on the show to talk about women and fitness, and then overall fitness for law enforcement officers, Deb.
Sure.
Before we do that, I know you have a product line out. I'm so proud of you and your accomplishments. Can you talk about your product line?
Yeah, sure. So, Don, as you mentioned, I've been doing health and wellness coaching for a lot of years now. And for about a decade, I would have people reach out to me and say, hey, Deb, what protein powder do you recommend? Or what do you suggest that I take to really make sure that I stay hydrated? Or I can't sleep well. What do you suggest? And so for more than a decade, I would just direct people to random products that I personally used or I did my own research on to find out what might be the cleanest and most therapeutic products out there. And what I found is that I was always piecing things together. I was going to take one of these and 3 of those, and then, that's not the best, but it's something out there. So I decided about a year ago to invest my time, my knowledge, and my money into my own product line that is a full, all-natural, no-banned substances, completely therapeutic line of products that address the most common issues that people would ask me about. So there's a protein powder that's got digestive enzymes and probiotics. There's a sleep and recovery aid. There's a hydration product. And we can get into the more details, but there's 4 flagship products, and they really do address the most common issues that 99% of the population would benefit from.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned all of that, because while I was on the job, being the only female in my department, it was difficult to talk about issues sometimes that impacted me as a female. But I knew that my biggest problem was hydration. Because I was in the patrol division, I would go call to call, not having the affordability of a bathroom close by if I needed it. So I didn't want to take in too much fluid, because I knew that if I was going call to call, I would have to, use the facilities. Yeah. And so that became problematic, but it also became a lifestyle. And in retirement now, I realize that all those years of not hydrating have caused some long-term habits. Am I making sense with that?
It makes total sense. Yeah, so I will tell you that the biggest challenge that people have is actually the lack of knowledge about the subject. So a lot of people think that the answer is to just drink tons of water. And to your point, when you're out in the field and you don't have access to a bathroom, you tend to withhold drinking water. And so people think that the only way that they can hydrate is just to dump a ton, like a gallon of water into their body. And then if they can't have access to a bathroom, then they just don't drink. The truth is that your body can't hold on to the water that you put into it unless it has the right amount of minerals in it or electrolytes.
Right.
So if you can imagine your body wants to keep the level of electrolytes and water in a natural balance. It's called homeostasis, the scientific term. And so if you just put a ton of water in your body and you don't have the right amount of electrolytes in your body or minerals, your body's going to actually look to just get rid of that water, hence the need to use the bathroom all the time. If you actually put in the right amount of electrolytes in your body, there's sodium, potassium, calcium, and magnesium, then your body can actually utilize the water that you put into it more effectively, so you can actually become more hydrated with less physical water. And it's a phenomenon that most people, especially in law enforcement, don't understand, that if you actually drink half as much water, but that's got the right amount of electrolytes in it, you'll actually be more hydrated than if you drink twice as much plain water. And so the product that I developed, actually True Splash, it's got two kinds of magnesium in it. It's got potassium in it. It's got calcium, and then it's got sodium. And it's got two kinds of sodium, so it's not just salty. And though it's actually at therapeutic doses and at the right ratio, so that as you drink about 40 to 60 ounces of water over the course of a 24-hour period, it encourages your body to hold on to that water so that you can actually have good muscle contraction, clear mindset, so you can actually think clearly, and you actually have good energy too, and you don't get fatigued.
That makes total sense, because I can remember having all those symptoms, the fatigue and the constant need to use the bathroom. Yeah. And let's incorporate a problem, shift work. So law enforcement officers, not everyone, but usually starting out, you work different shifts, or you could work a midnight shift where the body, especially for women with our biological changes that happen monthly, you have that come into play. So how is the lack of hydration, with the studies that you've done and just your personal knowledge, have an impact on an individual?
Yeah, so I will tell you that here's what's interesting is if you look at the average person, if you about 30 to 40% of America is obese at this point, and about 75% is overweight. One of the problems that we have is, people need to address being overweight or obese, but in the average population, it's because they want to look better. You see, with law enforcement, being overweight or obese is actually a matter of life and death. I mean, obviously, in any kind of pursuit, you need to have some sense of fitness and endurance to be able to stay up, with somebody. But also, especially for women, you need to be in good physical fitness to be able to stand against a perp or to keep up with someone. But here's the bigger challenge: is that 80% of law enforcement are either overweight or obese. They're actually among the top professions that are overweight and obese and are worse than the average American public. And the research that I did for my doctorate and then continued to publish is that, what contributes to that is shift work, stress, having unplanned meal times, and lack of consistent availability to good, healthy food. And it's beyond just, being healthy or looking a certain way. Being overweight and obese and having stress and having poor sleep is going to increase the risk of cardiovascular disease and is actually linked to poor mental health. So it leads to depressions, correlated to anxiety, and actually increases in suicide. And so, being overweight and obese is a problem for the average American, but it's a much more significant problem for law enforcement. And especially for, women in law enforcement that are in that 40 to 50-year-old range that are now getting the challenges of hormones. And so for me, obviously being a health and wellness coach, I want to make sure that every American feels like they've got the right tools, the knowledge and the support to be a healthy weight and have good fitness. But for law enforcement especially, it's really very critical to make sure that the shift work and the stress and the unplanned meal times and the lack of access to healthy food doesn't complicate an already obese population of law enforcement officers.
Yes, I agree. I have seen, many law enforcement officers not let themselves go, but have a lot of commitments, not only on the job and off the job, and don't take care of themselves. But I'd like to talk a little bit about the gear, what law enforcement officers wear. That gun belt, the vest, which is extra poundage on top of extra poundage, and the complications that that one gets as they get older with their hips or their spine and their back. And as a wellness and being in wellness, health, and fitness, do you have any suggestions for what officers could do when they're off the job or when they're on the job to kind of eliminate that extra stress on their bodies?
Yeah. So first, let's kind of talk about an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So keeping in good physical shape off duty is really important so that you've got the right muscle tone to hold all of that extra gear on your body. And so, one of the things that I find, especially women, is that we don't eat enough protein. Mm-hmm. And so eating sufficient protein will support the body in being able to have enough muscle tone, when you do exercise, or even if you don't. See, we actually lose about 10% of our muscle mass every year, every decade that we age. And so as we lose muscle mass, our spine doesn't have as much support and structure. Our joints don't have as much support and structure. And so when you start throwing on, the poundage from the gun belt and from the vest and just from all the other gear that you carry, and then on top of that, just the constant physical nature of the job, that lack of muscle tone tends to really add stress to the spine, to the hips, and to the joints. And so one of the things that I'm always telling women in law enforcement that I coach is we've got to make sure that you've got sufficient protein in your body to support any kind of exercise you do for muscle tone. And so good guide is like for the average woman, about 100 to 125 grams of protein a day is a really good place to start as a goal. I actually did put out a product I mentioned earlier, True Build. It's a simple whey isolate. It's got 25 grams of protein in a scoop. It's also got digestive enzymes and probiotics that are really important for overall health and wellness. And that's a really easy way to make sure that you hit your protein goals for the day, on top of, say, some meats or some lean dairies. It just, great way to get in protein. And then the second thing is, a lot of people think that it's about exercising. It's about going to a gym and lifting weights. Donna, quite frankly, it's really just about moving. So, if you're standing in your living room, if you sit down and stand up, that's actually movement and exercise. And just do that maybe during every commercial where you sit down, stand up. If you feel yourself that you're going to be challenged, grab a backpack that's just got a couple of water bottles or a couple gallons of water in it. And, just move more. Park at the back of the parking lot to walk to the station or into the office for the day. I think that a lot of times we've become very sedentary because we're tired, but that's actually really counterproductive, and it really wears on our body and on our mind too. So, there's a way that I also think too, just, the internet's such a great resource right now. And I would tell anybody out there, if you just go to YouTube and just put in that search bar, quick 10-minute at-home workout, no equipment, you'll get thousands of opportunities to just sit and for 10 minutes move around a little bit that just keeps everything going. And then the last thing is really just walking. And I know that walking gets a bad rep for exercise, but the truth of the matter is our bodies were made to move and to walk. And so even just getting out there, what I call intentional walks. So not just kind of, listen, there's always a day and a place for, walking and just enjoying the sights and smelling the flowers, but an intentional walk where you're actually looking to just get a little out of breath and move your body a little bit is great for cardiovascular health.
Well, you've inspired me. After the show, I want to take a walk. I mean, I'm ready to go, Deb.
It's really that simple, Don. I mean, if you think about it, if you just start today and go for a 20-minute intentional walk, and as you walk, just say, this is intentional. It's about getting some exercise and getting my heart healthy. When you come home, just stand up and sit down on that couch about 10 times, and then maybe, grab a backpack that's just got some water bottles in it and lift it up your head 10 times. You just did a day's worth of exercise. That's better than nothing.
Well, thank you so much for this great advice and the tips that you're giving to our brothers, sisters in blue. But before we end the show, I'd like to talk about the health and wellness of being financially stable. I know during COVID, it's been a tough time, especially for retirees like myself. And I had wanted to refinance my house, but was concerned that I couldn't do it. I didn't want to do it, or I didn't know if I would meet the qualifications. And
Yeah.
and thanks to a program that you are a part of. Just explain a little bit about that to our audience.
Yeah, sure. So a lot of people do know me, Dr. Debbie Rosen. I'm actually Jeff Rosen's wife, and I have been a longtime supporter of law enforcement as part of Team Jeff Rosen. So Jeff has a program called Lending to Heroes, where he does mortgages for police officers, veterans, firefighters, and others. And so for law enforcement, he waives all of the banking fees, which saves thousands of dollars. And, he's a banker, so the programs are very comparable to any of the big banks that are out there, but with no fees. Jeff, I tell you something, when Jeff comes home after a long day and he's got a smile on his face and says, "What'd you do today?" And he'll say, "Save somebody $1,500 a month." It changes someone's life. And, when we talked earlier, Donna, about, mental health and how it correlates to being overweight or obese and stress levels, and you talk about how that weighs on cardiovascular health, being stressed over finances is the number one risk factor for stress-related cardiovascular disease. Financial stress is something that can literally kill people. It breaks up marriages. It causes depression and suicide. And so, I can tell you that, being part of a program with Jeff where, you can save people thousands of dollars or let them sleep well at night because they know that they can actually afford to stay in their home, or put their kids through college because they refinanced with that, or bought their home with a really great program that saved them a lot of money. It's pretty cool that, that peace of mind, you can't put a price tag on it, and it's really worth everything for mental health.
Well, thank you so much, Deb. And I'm a big fan of Team Rosen. As you know, I know Jeff for many years. And,
Sure.
and I appreciate your taking the time today. Thinking outside the box, that's what we do on Police Speak. We not only speak to law enforcement officers and with law enforcement officers, but we like to bring in experts in different fields of health, wellness, and resiliency. And thank you for taking so much time, Dr. Debbie Rosen, out of, I know, your very busy schedule to be here. But I would also like to, as we end the show, just to a website or websites where we can find out more about your product line.
Sure. Yeah, I would love that, Donna. So you can find out information about the products at www.trueviditylabs.com. You can find more about me at just www.truevidity.com. And if you mention that you're a member of law enforcement, we'll always include free shipping. So just let me know how I can help.
Well, you have helped, and I know you will continue to help. We'll bring you back on another show with another topic in your wheelhouse. And please give Jeff my best. And we wish all the best with you and your new product line.
Thank you, Donna, and thanks to all the members of law enforcement out there, especially that listen to Police Speak, for keeping our communities safe all the time.
And thank you for your and Jeff's total support of law enforcement. And I also want to thank our listening audience today for tuning in to Police Speak. As always, Police Speak is your destination for all things law enforcement. Stay safe out there.